Hi there, fellow historians, and welcome to another episode of 5-Minute Flashback. In today's episode, we will cover the historical background of the sport we know today as tennis. Now, where did the sport of tennis originate, and how did it evolve into the sport so many of us enjoy today and flock to stadiums around the world to see? Well, in order to answer these questions, we have to travel back in time. The origin of tennis dates back to 12th century France, when it was played in the form of a handball game called palm, or palm. The name of the game explained how it was played. The participants would hit the ball back and forth by hand. However, later on they began to use black leather gloves. Following the addition of black leather gloves, a handle was added to the glove, which formed the two primary parts of a racket, the handle and the face of the racket. Although this formed the general silhouette of the modern tennis racket, the very first racket, like the ones you may be familiar with today, did not come about until a Londoner by the name of Major C. Wingfield made the first model in 1874. The rackets designed by Wingfield were made of solid wood, so they definitely would not have withstood the tantrums thrown by some players today. Trust me. Anyway, following the introduction of the first racket in 1968, Wilson released the T2000, which was the first steel racket. This model gained immense popularity after the great Jimmy Connors started using it. After the release of this line of Wilson rackets, other racket manufacturers experimented with different design options for rackets. More specifically, they started to become aware of how the design of the racket, to an extent, affected the performance of the player. For instance, they altered the head of the racket by making them oversized, which became the new trend at the time. This design became largely popular due to the fact that it increased the sweet spot for added power. After the adoption of steel rackets in the 60s, Wilson once again pushed the envelope further when they started producing rackets made with graphite, which became popular and widely used. Wilson would go on to be one of the most sought after and coveted brands in tennis, especially after they launched the Pro Staff line and the K-Factor line, which were used by tennis greats Pete Sampras and Roger Federer. Since then, other popular brands like Babolat, Prince, and Head have also grown in popularity. In addition to the rackets evolving over the years, other areas of the sport also changed with the times. For example, the game's name had changed from palm to lawn tennis. The game was now played on a court consisting of the service boxes and doubles alleys. Initially, the sport was solely played on grass courts by Victorian gentlemen and ladies. However, currently the sport is played primarily on three surfaces, which include grass, clay, and hard court. The sport first arrived in the United States in the 1870s. Research revealed that William Appleton of Massachusetts was the first one to own a lawn tennis set, and his friends James Dwight and Fred Sears popularized the game. One of the turning points in the sport's popularity occurred when the All England Croquet Club decided to set aside one of their lawns at Wimbledon for tennis. The sport exploded afterwards, and in 1877, the club held the first tennis championship, and a subcommittee of 3 was appointed. They decided the event would be played on a 78 feet by 36 feet rectangular court. They adapted the current tennis method of scoring, 15, 30, 40 game, and allowed the server one fault. These major decisions are still the current rules that govern the game. As the sport's popularity grew, the U.S. National Lawn Tennis Association was formed. Later on, it was renamed the U.S. Tennis Association, or USTA. In September of 1972, the Association of Tennis Professionals, or ATP, was formed. A year later, in 1973, the Women's Tennis Association was formed. Today, both these circuits are comprised of 4 big tournaments known as majors. These tournaments are the Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open, in that order respectively. Each member of the organizations holds a ranking which is determined by the points they earn based on their performance at each tournament they play on the circuit. The maximum points one can earn at the tournaments are 250, 500, 1,000, and 2,000. Grand Slams hold the highest point values, which is why they are the biggest tournaments in the season. Depending on how far you progress in these tournaments, you receive a certain amount of points. Up until this year, the majors have been dominated by 3 players in the men's circuit. They are known as the Big Three, and they include Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. Each of the Big Three hold 20 Grand Slam titles or more. On the women's circuit, Serena and Venus Williams dominated the sport until their retirement. Together, they have a total of 27 Grand Slam titles. This year, Roger Federer and Serena Williams announced their retirement from the sport of tennis. Although both of these beloved players dominated the sport for years, the next era of players is looking bright with new stars emerging. It will be exciting to see how the next era of stars develop and how much they push the game forward. Who's your favorite tennis star? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all at ZTV 5-Minute Flashback. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
This program was produced by ZTV at the University of Akron. Do you want to gain experience in video production, professional social media, or working with real clients? Visit the UA School of Communications online or follow us on social media to learn more. ZTV, make media, make a difference.